She stood there trembling, her voice barely strong enough to form words, yet strong enough to carry the weight of survival. The city glowed with luxury, laughter, and full plates of food, but for her and her little brother, hunger had become a daily companion. What she asked next was not for money, not for sympathy, but for something most people throw away without a second thought. In that moment, time slowed. The man she spoke to had everything the world could offer, yet something in her eyes made him realize he was missing the one thing money could not buy. This was not just a meeting of two worlds. It was the moment a single answer would decide whether despair would win or hope would rise. Listen closely, because what happened next did not just change her life. It changed his forever. The city never truly slept, but that evening it seemed quieter, almost as if it were holding its breath. Bright lights reflected off tall buildings, restaurants buzzed with laughter, and the smell of fresh food floated through the streets. Yet just a few steps away from all that comfort, hunger waited in silence. She stood near the back of a closed shop, her thin arms wrapped protectively around her little brother. His head rested against her side, his small fingers clutching a broken toy as if it were something precious. Her eyes kept scanning the pavement, not for people but for leftovers. Not for kindness but for survival. Every sound made her tense. Every passing shadow reminded her that the night could be cruel. Nearby, a man stepped out of a shining building, adjusting his coat as his phone buzzed with missed calls and unread messages. He had spent the day surrounded by power, numbers, and decisions that moved millions. Tonight, however, none of it seemed to matter. A strange emptiness followed him as he walked, something he could not explain and could not escape. Then he noticed movement by the trash bin. At first, he assumed it was an animal. But when he looked closer, his steps slowed. 2 children. Far too small to be alone. The girl froze when she saw him, instantly placing herself in front of her brother. Her body was tense, ready to defend, ready to run. For a moment, neither spoke. The city noise faded into the background. Her stomach betrayed her with a soft sound, and her cheeks flushed with shame. She hesitated, then lifted her eyes to his. They were tired eyes, too old for her age, carrying fear and courage at the same time. Finally, she gathered all the strength she had left and asked a question that no child should ever have to ask. A simple question, yet heavy enough to shake a grown man to his core. In that instant, the world he knew and the world she lived in collided, and nothing would ever feel the same again. The man did not answer right away. He looked at the trash bin, then back at the girl, as if his mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. The question she had asked lingered in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. Around them, people passed by without slowing down, laughing, talking, living lives untouched by this moment. The girl tightened her grip on her brother's hand. She had learned not to expect kindness. Silence usually meant rejection. Anger meant danger. Her heart pounded as she waited, already preparing herself to pull her brother away if needed. She did not want pity. She only wanted to make sure he would not go to sleep hungry again. The man finally lowered himself to their level. His expensive shoes touched the cold pavement, a sight that would have shocked anyone who knew him. He studied their faces more closely now. The dirt on their clothes, the exhaustion in their eyes, the way the girl stood like a shield. Something inside him shifted, slow and painful. "Are you hungry?" he asked quietly. The boy did not answer. He hid behind his sister, pressing his face into her side. She nodded once, barely. Her voice trembled as she spoke, trying to sound braver than she felt. She explained that they had not eaten since the day before. That they were just looking for food no one wanted anymore. Nothing else. The man glanced toward the nearby restaurant, its windows glowing warmly. Plates were being cleared, food scraped away without a second thought. He stood up slowly as if carrying a sudden weight. He hesitated, aware of eyes that might be watching, of rules and fears he had never had to face before. "Come with me," he said at last. The girl stiffened. Her instincts screamed at her to refuse. Trust had failed her too many times. She looked up at him, searching his face for any sign of harm. All she saw was uncertainty mixed with something else she could not name. "Just to eat," he added gently. The boy's stomach growled again, louder this time. The girl closed her eyes for a brief second, then opened them with quiet resolve. She nodded, stepping forward, unaware that this single choice was pulling all of them toward a future none of them could yet imagine. They walked side by side, yet worlds apart. The girl kept her brother close, her small hand wrapped tightly around his as if letting go might cause him to disappear. Every step felt uncertain. She watched the man from the corner of her eye, measuring his pace, his breathing, the way he looked ahead instead of down at them. She had learned to notice these things. Survival had trained her well. The restaurant door opened, releasing a wave of warmth and rich smells that made her stomach twist painfully. The boy lifted his head, eyes wide with wonder. He had not seen a place like this in a long time. The girl hesitated at the entrance, her feet refusing to move. Clean floors and bright lights felt dangerous, like a world that might reject them at any second. The man noticed and stopped. He did not rush her. He simply waited. That small pause spoke louder than words. Slowly she stepped inside. They were seated near the window. She chose the chair closest to her brother, turning slightly so her body still formed a barrier between him and everything else. When the menu was placed in her hands, she held it carefully as though it might vanish if she touched it too hard. The pictures confused her. So many choices. Too many. Anything you want, the man said. She shook her head quickly. She did not trust such freedom. Instead, she whispered that anything simple would be fine. The boy, braver now, pointed at a picture and smiled. It was the first smile the man had seen from him. While they waited, silence settled between them. The girl's eyes moved constantly, watching the door, the people, the street outside. The man tried to ask gentle questions, but her answers were short. She had learned that stories could invite trouble. When the food arrived, steam rising from the plates, she froze. It looked unreal. The boy reached out, then stopped, looking at his sister for permission. She nodded, and only then did he take his first bite. She watched him chew, swallow, breathe. Only after that did she allow herself to eat. Across the table, the man felt something tighten in his chest. This was no ordinary meal. This was a moment that demanded a decision. And as he looked at the children, he realized that walking away after tonight would be the easiest choice. It was also the one that would haunt him forever. As the children ate, the man found himself barely touching his own food. His attention stayed fixed on them, on the way the girl kept glancing at her brother's plate, making sure it was never empty. She reminded him of someone who had learned responsibility far too early. Each small gesture pulled at something deep within him, something he had kept buried beneath years of success and routine. He tried to make conversation, choosing his words carefully. Where did they sleep? Did they have anyone waiting for them? The girl answered slowly, her voice steady but guarded. She spoke of nights spent moving from place to place, of always choosing spots where they could hide. She did not complain. She simply stated facts, as if hardship were an ordinary thing, as if hunger were just another part of growing up. The boy leaned against her, growing quieter as his stomach filled. The girl brushed crumbs from his shirt, her movements gentle and practiced. Watching her, the man felt an unexpected ache. He thought of his own life, of the quiet apartment waiting for him, of the empty rooms that echoed with comfort but lacked warmth. Wealth had given him everything except the feeling of being needed. He remembered conversations that had ended in silence, plans that never came to be. The longing he had ignored now surfaced with painful clarity. These children had nothing, yet they clung to each other with a strength he admired and envied. When he asked if they had somewhere safe to go that night, the girl's hand stilled. She looked down at the table, then up again, her eyes pleading without asking. She spoke of places they tried to avoid, of fear that followed them when the sun went down. Her greatest worry was not herself, but her brother. The man leaned back, heart racing. Rules and responsibilities crowded his thoughts, warning him to step away. Yet another voice, quieter but stronger, urged him to listen to what this moment was asking of him. This was no longer about a meal. It was about a choice that could either change lives or leave them exactly where they were. The plates were nearly empty now, but the tension at the table only grew stronger. The girl wiped her brother's hands with a napkin she had folded and unfolded several times, as if keeping them clean might somehow protect him from the world outside. The boy's eyes grew heavy, comforted by warmth and food, comforted by a feeling he barely remembered. The man watched this quietly. He realized how easily this night could end. He could stand up, pay the bill, and tell himself he had done enough. Many would say he already had. Yet his chest felt tight, as though leaving would mean abandoning something fragile and important. He cleared his throat and spoke softly. He mentioned places that helped families, people trained to care for children. The girl's face changed instantly. Her shoulders stiffened. Fear replaced gratitude. She shook her head, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound calm. She spoke of children being taken apart from one another, of promises that were never kept. Her brother stirred, sensing her distress, and reached for her hand. Seeing her fear, the man felt doubt crash over him. He was unprepared for this kind of responsibility. Money could solve problems, but trust could not be bought. He suggested meeting again the next day, offering clothes, food, answers. He slid some cash toward her, explaining it could help them find shelter for the night. She stared at it as if it were dangerous. Slowly she accepted it, not with relief but with caution. She asked him to promise he would come back. Not with grand words, but with the simple honesty of a child who had been disappointed too many times. He gave his word, surprised by how serious it felt. As they stood to leave, the girl took her brother's hand again, her posture firm and protective. Before walking away, she looked back once, her eyes filled with hope and doubt intertwined. As they disappeared into the night, the man remained still, knowing the hardest part had begun. Helping once was easy. Coming back would mean facing everything he had avoided about his own life, and he was no longer sure he could turn away. Sleep did not come easily that night. The man lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the girl's face in his mind and the way her brother's hand had clung to hers. By morning, his decision was already made. He arrived early, carrying bags filled with clean clothes, warm food, and quiet hope. Time passed slowly. Each minute felt heavier than the last. Just when doubt began to creep in, he saw them. The girl approached cautiously, scanning the street before stepping forward. The boy looked cleaner, tired but smiling. Relief washed over him so strongly that he had to steady himself. She had come back. She had trusted him. This time he did not rush. He listened. Truly listened. He spoke about help that would keep them together, about doors that could open without tearing them apart. He invited someone he trusted into the conversation, a person who knew how to protect children without breaking their bond. For the first time, the girl did not pull away. She asked questions. She dared to imagine. Days turned into weeks, and those weeks slowly reshaped their lives. The children moved into a place filled with warmth, laughter, and safety. The girl no longer slept with fear in her eyes. The boy learned to laugh loudly without hesitation. The man found himself present in ways he never had before. His empty rooms filled with purpose, his success finally meaning something beyond numbers. One evening, as they shared a simple meal, the girl looked up at him and smiled, not the cautious smile of survival, but the open smile of trust. In that moment, he understood that the question she asked that night had not been about food. It had been about being seen. And by answering it, they had saved each other.